I was standing at the sink, holding that chipped mug our daughter painted when she was 9. Purple streaks, a lopsided heart, her name in crooked letters. Katie had been so proud of it. The glaze was worn, but I used it every morning. That day wasn't any different. Pam walked in like she was heading to the mailbox. Calm, casual. She leaned on the fridge, arms crossed. "I think I need some space," she said. Her tone was flat, too flat, like a client trying to back out of a deal without saying the real reason. She wasn't asking. She was exiting. I didn't react. Just sipped the coffee, let the silence stretch. That's how you handle those types. You don't make them the center of the room. "All right," I said. That was it. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. She just nodded like we were discussing grocery pickup and walked out of the kitchen. I heard her sandals slapping the hallway tile as she headed toward the bedroom. No door slam. No look back. Nothing. I turned back to the sink. There was a single plate in there, hers, but she hadn't eaten. I knew that because I cooked breakfast, and she never came to the table. She just walked in, dropped that bomb, and acted like we were done talking. I set the mug down, wiped my hands on a dish towel, and pulled the drawer open near the fridge. That little black notebook was still there, hardcover, lined, from when I used to take notes on job sites. Used it for years to track flaky clients, delayed payments, and people who gave you that gut feeling. I flipped past pages labeled warning signs and trust at your own risk. Started a new page. Wrote in all caps, space. Underneath I wrote the date. Then a few bullet points. No fight. No emotion. She's rehearsed this. Quick note. Before we go further, share which city or country you're watching from. I stared at the word space for a second, then underlined it. I wasn't mad. That was the strange part. No heat in my chest. No shaking hands. Just a quiet kind of click, like something locking into place. I closed the notebook and slipped it into the pocket of my flannel. Then I walked out to the garage and looked around. Tools, shelves, old paint cans. Time to make a few changes, nothing big, not yet. Just the kind that wouldn't get noticed until it was too late. I started with the tools. Didn't make a big show of it. Just opened the garage. Walked past the shelves like I was grabbing something quick. My old DeWalt drill, socket sets, laser level, a couple of specialty saw blades. Things she wouldn't know were missing unless she tore the place apart. I loaded them into the bed of my truck, tucked under an old moving blanket. Back inside, I logged onto the laptop at the dining table and pulled up the bank. Same passwords we'd had for years. I opened a new account with a small credit union across town. Used my middle name plus a variation of my mother's maiden name, enough to keep it under the radar. Transferred my business savings over in chunks. Nothing that'd raise a flag. Then I called the bank. "Yeah, I need to freeze our joint card." Got an alert that someone tried to charge a gift card site in Miami. The woman on the line sounded concerned. I wasn't. I let her walk me through the process, confirmed my ID, and hung up like I just paid a bill. That card had been in her purse for years. She'd figure it out eventually. Let her make the next call. She walked through the kitchen around lunchtime, purse on her shoulder, sunglasses already on. "I'm heading to meet Tanya and Jill. You want anything while I'm out?" I shook my head, kept scrolling on my phone. She smiled like everything was normal, like she hadn't dropped a nuke the day before. Then she was out the door. I stood up, locked the front door behind her, and pulled out the old photo boxes from the hallway closet. Sat down at the desk with the scanner humming. Katie's first dance recital. Kyle in his Pee-wee football gear. Family camping trip to the Smokies. Pam in a folding chair, looking bored while I grilled burgers. I made digital copies of the ones that mattered. Left the rest in the box. Around 4, my phone buzzed. "Pam, hey, you cooking tonight or should I grab something?" I let it sit. No read receipt, no reply. That silence she wanted, she could have it. Back in the kitchen, I poured a glass of water and stood by the sink again. Same unwashed dish from the day before. Still there. She hadn't touched it. Didn't bother me this time, it was just information. Data. She'd never been the one to clean up the mess. Not in the kitchen, not in our lives. That had always been me. plugging the leaks, handling the bills, fixing the cars, smoothing over her mood swings so the kids wouldn't notice. And she just coasted, assuming I'd be there to patch it all up. Not this time. I walked down to the basement and grabbed the fireproof lockbox where I used to keep job site receipts. Emptied it out. Filled it with the notebook, scanned photos, spare cash, and a copy of my truck title. I didn't know exactly what I'd need, but I wasn't going to be caught unprepared. I went back upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked around the room. Her makeup bag was open on the dresser. Perfume cap left off as usual. Little signs of someone who assumed they didn't have to be careful. Before, I might have snapped at that, told her to clean up after herself. Now, I just logged the detail and stood up. Every step I took wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was strategy. I packed the boots first. The ones I wore for every job. Steel toe, cracked leather, soles worn smooth from 30 years on concrete. I cleaned them up and slid them into the black duffel I kept under the bed. She was in the living room watching a reality show with the volume too loud. I walked past with the duffel slung over my shoulder. She didn't look up. The recliner came next. Took it out piece by piece over 2 days. Footrest, back, cushions. All loaded into the truck, while she was out running errands or talking loud on the phone with her sister about rebuilding herself. No mention of me, just buzzwords and hashtags. Every time I opened the front door, I made sure it didn't slam. Her closet stayed full. Mine thinned out by the day. I only took what I needed: shirts that still fit right, jeans with no holes, a couple of jackets. I left the ones she always said made me look tired. Let her stare at those and wonder. She still hadn't said a word. I booked an appointment with a lawyer I'd worked with once before. Quiet guy, real estate and estate planning mostly, not the type to stir anything up. Sat across from him at a small desk with a legal pad. I want to set up a trust, I told him. Name my son Kyle as the primary. Pull Pam off everything. He glanced up. Everything. I nodded. Everything. We worked through the paperwork, piece by piece. He didn't ask questions he didn't need answers to. I respected that. That night, I opened Facebook for the first time in months. Just curiosity, really. Her profile was all sunshine and faux deep captions. Sometimes losing yourself is how you truly come alive. Healing in progress. Please respect my space. Just me, finally. I clicked out. Nothing there for me. A few days later, the house felt lighter, emptier. The living room looked off without the recliner, but she didn't comment. Either she noticed and didn't care, or she cared and didn't want me to know. Both worked in my favor. The call from Kyle came midweek, around 6. Hey Dad, everything okay? Yeah, I said. Why? No reason, just checking in. He sounded casual, but there was a pause that dragged too long. He wasn't just checking in. He was fishing. I looked out the window, watched Pam laughing in the driveway with her yoga group. Loud, performative. Like everything in her world was suddenly open to the public. You sure everything's fine? Kyle asked. Things are changing, I said. But I'm okay. Another pause. Then, all right, let me know if you need anything. I wanted to ask if he already knew. If Pam had called him, or if he'd seen the signs himself. But I didn't. Will do, I said, then hung up. That night, I took the last box out. Tools, lockbox, notebook, and scanned photos all packed tight. Set it in the truck bed and closed the tailgate slow. When I stepped back inside, she was in the kitchen scrolling her phone. Did you take the trash out? She asked without looking up. Yeah, I said. She nodded, still scrolling. I opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and took a long drink. Didn't say anything more. Didn't have to. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was deliberate. I was standing at the stove, flipping 2 chicken breasts in a cast iron skillet when the door opened. Pam's voice came in first, loud, fake happy. Back, she called out. Like we were still a couple who greeted each other with kisses and dinner plans. I didn't answer, just kept my eyes on the pan. Her heels clicked across the hardwood. Then it went quiet. Wait, where's your chair? She asked from the living room. The smell of garlic and rosemary rose up with the steam. I turned the burner down and grabbed a plate from the cabinet. Still didn't respond. She stepped into the kitchen, sunglasses still on top of her head. "Mitch!" I set the chicken on the plate. Her tone had shifted, less casual now, more pointed. "You take it to the shop for repairs or something?" I wiped my hands on a towel. No eye contact. No reaction. Her laugh came next, thin, almost shaky. "You finally got rid of that eyesore, huh?" I'm shocked. I looked over, slow and steady. "I thought you needed space." That hit her harder than she wanted to show. Her mouth opened like she had a comeback ready, but nothing came out. Just stood there, blinking like she didn't understand the rules of the game anymore. She looked at the plate in my hand, then back toward the living room. "Well, it just surprised me, that's all." I moved past her, set the plate on the dining table, and went back to grab silverware. She didn't follow. Just stood planted in the middle of the kitchen like she'd missed a step in her own choreography. When I sat down, she finally spoke again. "So, are you eating alone now?" I cut into the chicken. "Looks like it." She crossed her arms, leaned back against the counter. "Right? Okay." That was it. She left the kitchen. I listened to the soft shuffle of her slippers on the stairs. A few seconds later, the bedroom door closed, not slammed, just shut. That was new. I finished eating without a word. No TV, no distractions. Just the scrape of the fork against the plate and the low hum of the fridge. When I got up to rinse my dish, I glanced toward the staircase. The light was still on in the hallway, but I didn't hear a sound. She hadn't been expecting that. She'd come in ready to stir something up, force a conversation, maybe even bait me into an argument. That was how it always went. Push until I snapped, then spin the narrative like I was the difficult one. But not tonight. I dried the plate, put it back in the cabinet, and wiped down the counter. She wasn't going to get a performance from me. The first text came the next morning. "Pam, hey. Sorry if I was weird last night. Just caught me off guard." I stared at it while sipping my coffee. Didn't type anything. Just locked the screen and set the phone down. An hour later, "Want to talk tonight?" Didn't answer that one either. By noon, she was calling. I watched it ring out. Her name lit up the screen like she was still entitled to access. But that's all it was now, a name. No pull behind it. I didn't feel giddy or smug. It wasn't about making her suffer. I just didn't care anymore. That string between us, it was cut, and I wasn't planning on tying it back together. By the end of the week, I had the keys to a short-term rental across town. 2 rooms, thin carpet, no charm. The kind of place you pass without noticing. That's why I picked it. Paid in cash under a borrowed name. No mail. No online paperwork. Just a lockbox key, a handwritten receipt, and silence. I moved the rest of my stuff in one night late. No goodbye, no warning. Just drove out and didn't look back. The bed squeaked, the fridge buzzed too loud, and the heater made a clunk every 30 minutes. But it was mine, and she didn't know where it was. I checked my phone that night. More messages. "Can we talk? Just let me know where your head's at. This doesn't have to be this way." But it did. And it was. She kept posting on social media. More filtered selfies. Captions about strength and peace and letting go. Like she was walking some high road while ignoring the broken sidewalk behind her. I didn't block her. I just stopped looking. It was like watching someone try to write a new version of history without the parts that made them uncomfortable. Kyle called again on Sunday. "Hey Dad, you good?" "Yeah," I said. "Just working through stuff." He paused. "Okay, you don't sound bad, just different." I leaned back on the worn couch, looked out the window at the parking lot full of dented Toyotas. "It's a process," I told him. "But I'm all right. You need anything, you call me. All right?" "I will." He didn't push. He never did. But I could hear it in his voice. He knew something had shifted. I just wasn't ready to spell it out yet. When I hung up, I threw my phone on the armrest and let my eyes close for a second. The quiet wasn't empty. It was clean. A couple days after the last missed call, I got a text from Kyle. You know a guy named Mike? Gray hair, tall, weird smile? I stared at the name. Mike. Yeah, I knew him. Used to work with Pam back when she still held a part-time gig at that nonprofit in Shelbyville. Always hovering around her desk, cracking dumb jokes, calling her Pammy like they'd known each other since high school. I texted back, "Yeah, why? Saw him in your driveway earlier this week, talking to Mom. Thought you moved out." I didn't reply. That afternoon, I drove past the house. Didn't stop, just kept rolling. Sure enough, there was Mike's beat-up Ford Ranger in the driveway. Hood popped, tool bag out on the ground like he was playing handyman. Which was funny, since I'd fixed that sink last month. The one leaking under the kitchen. She was standing on the porch, arms crossed, laughing at something he said. I didn't slow down, just kept going. He was fishing for something, or she was using him to stir the water. Either way, not my problem. Back at the rental, I sat down with the lawyer again. He laid out the latest updates. The trust is almost finalized. You'll have full control of asset allocation by the end of the month. Good, I said. We've removed Pam from the will entirely. Kyle and your grandson are the sole beneficiaries. Good, I repeated. I didn't smile. Didn't need to. This wasn't about revenge, it was maintenance. Cleaning up the mess she left behind when she asked for space. A few days later, I picked up Kyle's boy from daycare while he was working late. The kid ran straight to me, arms out, backpack swinging off his shoulder. We sat on a bench outside a small lake afterward, watching the ducks splash and beg for crumbs we didn't have. You live close to us now, Grandpa? Closer than before. He nodded like that was all he needed. Kyle met us at the lake 20 minutes later. As we walked to the cars, he pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. She's still posting. I didn't ask who. Wants the whole world to know she's starting fresh. Said she's learning to release what no longer serves her. I snorted. She ever stop with the buzzwords? Kyle gave a half smile. Not yet. He glanced sideways. You okay with all this? I'm not part of this anymore. That shut the conversation down. We got in our trucks and drove off in separate directions. The more noise she made online, the less I heard in real life. She was spinning a story, playing the part, trying to make it look like strength when really it was scramble. Desperate filler to cover the silence I left behind. I didn't check her posts, but they always found a way back to me. Through Kyle, through mutual friends. Same recycled lines, growth, healing, rebirth. Like she was a phoenix and not a bored woman who thought she'd never lose the upper hand. Back at the rental that night, I sorted through the final trust documents. Signed my name where needed. Checked the balances, the allocations. All clean. All secured. All out of her reach. That chapter was closing. She wasn't in the next one. I was sitting at the little kitchen table, going over the last of the trust paperwork, when someone knocked on the door. 3 sharp hits. Too hard. Too fast. I didn't even need to look through the peephole. I opened it slow. Pam. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Eyes already narrowed. So this is where you've been hiding, she snapped, stepping forward like she owned the damn square of concrete in front of her. I didn't move. You shouldn't be here. Bullshit, she said, brushing past me into the apartment before I could shut the door. You don't get to disappear like this. She looked around, tight little grimace forming at the corners of her mouth. Not disgust, more like disbelief. Like she couldn't fathom me living somewhere that didn't revolve around her decor and throw pillows. You cut me off, Mitch, she said, spinning toward me. What the hell is going on? I closed the door and leaned against it. I'm not doing this anymore. What's this? Marriage? Communication? Being an adult? No, I said. Your games. She laughed once, short and bitter. Is that what you think? That I've been playing? You asked for space, I said. You got it. Her arms folded tight. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I know exactly what you meant. She stared at me, waiting for something. Anger, regret, a crack in the wall. But there was nothing left for her to grab onto. I've tried to reach out, she said, voice starting to shake. I've texted. I called. I even told Kyle I was worried. You just ignore me like I don't exist. I didn't respond. You don't even care, do you? She said, a tear sliding down one cheek. You've just been sitting here in this dump acting like I never mattered. She dropped onto the edge of the couch, buried her face in her hands. I didn't want it to go this far, Mitch. I didn't mean to lose you. I let the silence hang there. Let her feel the weight of it. When she looked back up, her mascara was smudged. Her mouth twisted into a shape I hadn't seen in years. Uncertainty. I didn't know you'd just check out, she whispered. You wanted space, I said. I filled it. She blinked. I'm not here for your approval anymore, I said. Not here to be your fallback. Not here to validate whatever version of reality you've convinced yourself is healthy. Mitch. No, I cut in. You don't get to cry and rewrite what happened. You didn't want me until I was gone. Her mouth opened, closed. You've been gone for years, I said. I just caught up. She stood slowly. You think this is easy for me? I don't care if it is. She stared at me like she didn't recognize who I was. Maybe she didn't. You're really done. I nodded once. She walked toward the door like she'd forgotten how to move her feet, just dragging herself along. At the threshold, she stopped. Where do we go from here? I don't, I said. You can go wherever you want. She hesitated like she might say something else, then stepped out and closed the door behind her. I listened to her footsteps fade down the hall. Then I turned back to the table, picked up my pen, and finished signing the last page of the trust paperwork. 2 days after she walked out of the rental, my phone lit up with a number I recognized from my lawyer's office. Hey, Mitch, Paul said. Just got the final confirmation. Everything's processed. The trust is active. All assets are secured. Pam's name is officially removed. I exhaled through my nose, steady. Appreciate it. I'll email you the final packet, but you're legally in the clear. No loose ends. Good, I said and meant it. No more what-ifs. No more shared anything. The floor had dropped, and I hadn't followed her down. That night, I was driving back from the hardware store when I noticed a voicemail notification on my phone. No missed call. She must have hung up before it rang through. I parked in front of the rental and hit play. It was her. Mitch, it's me. I don't know what else to say. I know I messed things up, I know that now. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't mean to push you away. I thought, God, I don't even know what I thought. Please call me back. Please, just talk to me. Please. Then silence. Not even a sob at the end. Just her breathing. Then the click of the recording ending. I sat there in the driver's seat for a minute. Didn't feel a thing. No rush of satisfaction. No desire to reply. That voicemail was for the Mitch she used to know. The one who'd have dropped everything to fix her panic. That guy didn't live here anymore. I deleted it. Later that afternoon, I met Kyle and his boy out at Willow Lake. Sun was still high but starting to soften. A few other dads were out there, sitting in fold-up chairs, trying to keep their kids from tangling their lines. Kyle handed me a tackle box. Figured you'd want to show him the ropes. Damn right I do. I helped my grandson get his rod set up, showed him how to bait the hook without stabbing his thumb. His little face scrunched up like it was rocket science. We cast out, let the bobber drift. You ever fish before? I asked him. Nope. You like it? He nodded. It's quiet. Yeah, I said, smiling. That's the point. Kyle stood behind us, hands in his pockets, watching. You seem lighter lately, he said quietly. I mean, compared to a few months ago. I didn't answer right away, just watched the bobber dip once, then settle. I've stopped dragging dead weight, I said. He nodded once. No judgment in it, just understanding. We stayed out until the sun dropped behind the trees. My grandson caught a small bluegill, grinning like he'd landed a shark. We threw it back, and he high-fived me like he'd won a trophy. Driving home, I realized I hadn't thought about Pam in hours. Her panic, her tears, her voicemail, none of it mattered. What mattered was what I had now. Clean break. My own name on my own account. A life that didn't include checking someone else's emotional temperature every day. No noise. No begging. No fixing. Just still water and the sound of line zipping off a reel. I was back at the rental, boots kicked off, sitting on the couch with a cold Coke and my feet up when the phone rang. Kyle. Hey, I answered. Everything all right? There was a pause. Then he said, Mom called me. I didn't say anything. She's upset, he went on. Said she's tried everything. She's asking me to talk to you. Said she wants to fix things. I took a breath, let it sit in my chest for a second. Fix what? I asked. You know what she means. No, I said. I don't think I do. Kyle was quiet. She begged, Dad. I'm sure she did. You want me to tell her anything? I leaned forward, rested my elbows on my knees. Yeah, I said. Tell her I'm done. She made her choice. Now she gets to live in it. You sure about that? I've never been more sure of anything. He didn't push. He knew better. I could picture her pacing around whatever room she'd staged her latest breakdown in, trying to rope Kyle in, trying to work the last angle she hadn't already burned. But that door wasn't cracked open anymore. It was sealed shut. Deadbolt. After we hung up, I stood at the window for a while, watching a neighbor's kid ride his bike in lazy circles through the lot. Sun was going down, painting the sky in that sharp orange that only lasts 10 minutes before the blue swallows it whole. And I realized, this was the first time in my life I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I wasn't carrying her disappointment anymore. I wasn't dragging around the hope that maybe next week she'd finally show up in the way I needed. That maybe she'd choose us instead of whatever personal project or public image she was chasing. That part of my life was finished. And for the first time in decades, the quiet didn't feel like a threat. Felt earned.